r/AskReddit. Ex-friends of celebrities. Who are they, and what were they like personally? I was best friends with Post Malone in high school, and he's pretty much the same person he was then in high school that he is now, just some more wild adventures, but his personality has been that same, and it's nice to see, with the fame and money he stayed who he is. Fun fact, he used to be an indie music guy in high school, wore Hawaiian v-necks, high watertight black jeans, and Toms. Coolest, chilliest, and funniest dude you cold hung out with. My old roommate went to high school with Jake and Logan Paul. He said it was when they were starting to get big on Vine, they started turning into complete holes. So nothing has changed. Not me, but my aunt. She knew Snoop during high school, and at the time everyone there were getting into colors. She decided to join in, tied a bandana to her arm. Later in the day he took it from her, without a word. Turns out that people wearing her color were being hunted down. Overall, pretty cool dude. I hear he hasn't changed much. My dad interned with Tom Hanks when he first started out at the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival. He was always very kind and charismatic with everyone, and just a constant ball of energy. When his son Colin was born, he proudly showed him off to everybody. He was probably just days old. About 3 years ago, there was a reunion of all the Great Lakes interns. My dad went, not knowing if he was going to show up, and if he did, if he'd remember him. But not only did he show up, he approached my dad and remembered him by his full name. He is honestly just a really great man. My uncle went to college with John Cena. He said he would walk down the dorm halls naked. My cousin dated Filthy Frank in high school. She said he was a totally normal guy, and that he was really funny and nice. One of my cousins went to school with 6ix99. They weren't friends. I asked him what it was like. He told me that 6ix99 was just the same dumbass that he is today, and I'm not really surprised. Went to high school with Neil Patrick Harris. He wasn't a bad dude, but wasn't humble in the least. He was still working on T.G. Hauser. When he was at school, he wasn't allowed to be himself, surrounded by fans and others. He had a nickname of Drama Dog by some of the other cliques. He hasn't gone to one of the reunions. Also went with Freddie Prinze Jr. He was a cool dude, but hung out with guys that stroked his ego and bullied others. I was an unfortunate victim to that. He hasn't made it to a reunion yet either. Went to elementary school with Justin Bieber. He was a total bully and a giant to shat, but for some reason he took a liking to me and invited me to all his birthdays. A funny memory I have is of him making fun of some kid on the stairwell and then tripping and falling down the stairs and then crying all the way to the principal's office. He has always been a total douche. My aunt was Zendaya's teacher in 4th grade. She says that she was a sweet girl. They saw each other at a meet and greet a while back. Pretty nice. Not a friend, but I knew Henry Cavill when he was a kid. He was sweet and reliable, and generally a very nice person. Haven't seen him since around the era when he was taking roles in films like Hellraiser 8, because working as an actor isn't easy. Can't really imagine what it must be like to be the subject of the intense media gaze that goes with being a global celebrity. Went to school with the adopted grandson of Picasso. Not a celebrity, but filthy rich was kinda of an act though. I went to school with Paris Hilton. She gave a bunch of dudes BJs but not me. My dad grew up in Massapequa, town on Long Island, and was best friends in elementary through high school with Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry would often jokingly call my dad the second funniest kid in school, of course referring to himself as the funniest. My mum went to school with Portia de Rossi, Ellen DeGeneres' wife. She was a year younger than my mum, and apparently a real bully. I went to the same school as Emma Watson and we shared many of the same teachers, though she graduated the year before I started. From what the teachers say, she was very studious and serious about her work and wanting to achieve. She was really good at art and English and is still really good friends with the old English department and even contributed a hand-drawn postcard to our school's centenary celebration. We all had to do postcards for an exhibit. She was really nice, but you couldn't talk to her or fangirl over her if you didn't know, otherwise the teachers would penalize you. This was during the Harry Potter years. My younger brother was friends with Justin Bieber. I didn't know him super well, saw him here and there, but always stood out. Even before he was famous, as he was the type of kid who would very loudly make fun of and bully others. I remember him being kicked off the city buses a few times for yelling at and being rude to mentally/physically disabled people, along with just old people in general as well. All around, my memory of him was that he was my great grandma, still alive, lived close to Elvis' home. They talked like 3 times. She literally thought he was the most annoying little crap. My mom went to college with Bob Odenkirk, Better Call Saul guy. They were in the radio department together, and apparently he was super funny. They also took shrooms together, and I've been jealous of my mom ever since I heard that story. Mike Myers went to a high school down the street from mine. We hung out with the same people. Charmingly funny and very humble. I haven't seen him for a very long time, but I do watch his interviews, and he seems to be the same guy he was. I always loved it when he came on the TV wearing a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey. Happy he has done so well. He was a jokester and always good to people. Hasn't forgotten where he came from. That's endearing and rare. My grandma was neighbors with Al Capone. She casually told me that he would come over for coffee some mornings. House was on 72nd and Prairie. I went to high school with Pink. I was kind of shy, but a lot of my friends were better friends with her. She was alright. I remember her singing to herself a lot. Taylor Lautner would get mad when people called him Shark Boy in high school. Can't say I blame him. Not me, but my father went to high school with Viggo Mortensen, Aragorn from LOTR. He said he was a really nice guy from the couple times he met him, and that he totally understands how he went on to save Middle-earth. My dad is a huge LOTR fan, if you can't tell. My grandma went to high school with Ted Bundy. She said he was quiet and didn't really have any friends. I went to school with Sophie Turner, Sansa Stark. She was a couple of years below me, but I was in a few plays with her. She was just an average girl tbh, in every way. Really normal, didn't really stand out, but wasn't quiet or shy either. She never got the big parts in plays, and wasn't even considered to be one of the good actors at our school, was always just a part of the chorus. Was quite surprised to hear she got a major part in a TV drama, seemed to come out of nowhere. I went to high school with John Heder, was a friendly guy, kinda goofy. When Napoleon Dynamite came out and became a craze, I couldn't believe it was him. Knew Ryan Lochte. Not much changed since he was a kid. Swims fast, thinks slow. I view him now as a teenager's mind in a middle-aged man's body, still doing things that don't make much sense. The kid who wrote the Aragon series, Christopher Paolini, went to school a ways from here. I can't say I knew him, but it's rural Montana, so I ran into him a few times, since nobody lives out here. He used to show up at our school promoting his book dressed in Renaissance fair style clothing. We all thought he was kind of a geek. He's worth like 30 mil now, because of a book he wrote when the rest of us were still trying to figure out who to take to prom. What's funny is that I actually recognize a few characters and places in his books as being partly based on locals in the surrounding area. Not me, but my mom went to junior high with Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook. She says that both were sort of overachievers, and so there was always a rivalry between them. My mom considers her to have been a backquote frenemy. Went to school with several people in various royal families, European and African. They could never show in team sports photos or things like that for security reasons, but surprisingly there were no actual bodyguards required, at least not that I saw. They seemed pretty down to earth compared to all the other rich a-holes there. Don't know if this counts, but I went to the same junior high and high school as Jensen Ackles, Dean Winchester in Supernatural. All the teachers would talk about how nice he was, and how he was going to make it big. Think he was already a regular on a soap opera by then. I finally saw him when I was in tech theater. He had come to see his sister in a high school play. He stayed to the end, and looked so proud of her. My dad went to college with Stephen Fry. Said he was one of the funniest dudes he ever met. Also my granddad went to art college with John Lennon. I unfortunately don't know if they knew each other well or not, since my granddad passed away when I was 6. I learned that they went to college together through my mother. One of my high school bullies was on the first 6 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. He was a crewman on the bridge and had a couple close-ups. It really bothered me because he was the type of the person to ruthlessly make fun of geeks. By the time episode 7 aired I had worked through my feelings, but in retrospect, I'm super happy he doesn't get to go 32nd century. Late to the party, but I knew Billy Joe Armstrong and the Green Day guys, and the Rancid guys, in their early times from my punk rock days. I did not know them well, but they were the nicest guys ever. I was standing in line with some friends at one of their sold out shows, and Billy Joe darted out, ran up to us and said, "What are you guys doing standing in line when there's equipment to be brought in? Don't be silly." He then brought us back to their van and gave us each a cymbal, a bass drum pedal, etc. something little we could each carry in, and jump the line as roadies, since we were old pals from early on. I ran into him backstage years later at a Weezer show. Again, I hadn't known them well, but knew them a bit, before they were famous. Billy Joe came up to me, addresses me by name, and we had a nice chat. Success couldn't have come to a group of more deserving guys I went to school with and hung in the same circles as one of the current Queer Eye guys. He was okay, we got along fine, though looking back, I can imagine it wasn't great for him. This was a fairly conservative small town in Missouri. No, he wasn't out then, or at least not in a public way.